Welcome to Global Information Security Society for Professionals of Pakistan.
We can start now. Okay? We have like 23 people are already there, so inshallah we can start. और मैंने ऑलरेडी बता दिया है अगर सेशन बंद हो जाए 40 मिनट्स के बाद तो प्लीज रीजॉइन, लेकिन नॉर्मली ये है कि लिफ्ट खत्म वो अपने आप वो लिफ्ट उस पे लिमिट खत्म हो जाती है. तो लेट्स हैव अ गुड सेशन. थैंक्स अ लॉट टू इमरान हाशिम साहब जिन्होंने इसके लिए वॉलंटियर किया है. तो विदाउट एनी चार्जेस वो आप सबको अपना टाइम स्पेंड करके वो आपको पढ़ाएंगे. तो इंशाल्लाह थैंक्स अ लॉट सर, वी रियली अप्रिशिएट दैट.
You're so welcome, sir.
Please continue.
Assalamu alaikum very much. Assalamu alaikum everybody. Thank you very much for joining me on today's session. And I expect that inshallah at the end of this session, you guys will have some information about the CISSP's first domain. Before we start into that, let me clear that this is a continuity of the CISSP's effort to bring the information to all the peers as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Let me see if somebody has a message for me or we get to the chat window. Great. Sure, I will do that. I will speak a bit louder. So this is a continuity of our previous session, which happened a couple of weeks ago. This was the introduction of CISSP, and in this particular session we will talk about specifically for the first domain. Can you hear me? Or I think from here, from Adnan, Adnan, can you hear me? Let me raise my voice a bit, please, guys. Stay. Sure. Can you hear me now? I'm speaking a bit louder now. Great. Let me go back to the presentation. Great. So we have this first session, inshallah. This is the part one of security and risk management. And at the end of this, inshallah, we'll have a second session also to complete this. So in this particular domain, we are going to discuss about the first part of the CISSP curriculum. First thing first, this is me, Imran Hashim, and I'm based in Riyadh. I'm from Pakistan, obviously, and I'm working as different IT positions for the last 25 years or so. So I've been in the CISSP for since 2003, when I cleared my CISSP exam, and since then I'm certified. And I have some other certifications also. I've been doing the CISSP trainings for many different people and groups. And incidentally, last week also I delivered it to a group. So it was to a Saudi team of people whom I did that. So inshallah, I expect that you guys will have a good stay here. And anytime you have a question, you're always free to raise your hand, type something in the chat. At the end of the session, we might also have another question answer session in which we can discuss things. My contacts are on your screen. You can contact me either a phone or in the LinkedIn profile, which I have there. And I will always be happy to respond to any queries that you have, whether they are for CISSP or anything else. Let's jump into the thing first, guys. So this is a continuity of our previous session. So when we had an introduction to CISSP a couple of weeks ago, and in that everything about the CISSP training itself, CISSP certification was discussed, and that can be a very good starting point for anyone. So here we go. So this is the common body of knowledge. It shows how many different domains are there for the CISSP and what are the weightage for each of them. So specifically, we are talking about security and risk management. So this is our first domain. As it shows, it's around 15% of the total overall exam. As the exam is computer-based and adaptive, so it will be not a fixed length exam. It will be based on the responses of the examinee. It will be from 100 to 150 questions asked from the person. So with that, around 15 to 22 questions can be there, depending on the number of questions which are being asked from you. So coming to the content of the first domain. So these are the objectives of this domain. So from 1.1 up to 1.12, you can see all of them on the screen. So we'll cover them one by one. In this particular session, I'll try to go up to 1.6, which might be around half of this particular domain. So as it shows, so it starts with the fundamental concepts of information security, and then it will how are we going to implement the security governance in any environment. Then it will continue to the compliance requirements. Then we'll see how different legal and regulatory requirements are there for information security in the global context. And then we'll see how are the different professional ethics, specifically for the ISC QR constituents. And then we'll see how are we going to develop, document, and implement some security policies, standards, procedures, and guidelines. So this is the scope that we are going to discuss today. So the remaining one will leave to the next session, inshallah. So our first part is the fundamental security concepts. So first of all, the definition of information security. So I know everybody around the world, they know these things a lot, and security is being talked about a lot and being discussed a lot. And a lot of things are happening around the information systems globally. And security is one of the hotcakes. About that, there's a question about recordings. I think I have started the recording. Let me confirm, guys. Yeah, so we have the recording. Obviously, we'll get the output at the end. So at the end of this, we'll upload the video to our channel, and you can get the recording in the YouTube channel. Yeah, sure. So the definition of information security. So it's the process by which any organization protects information and its critical elements, including the systems, media, people, and the facilities that process, store, and transmit the information. So this is a documented definition of information security. So this can be different from people to people and from entities to entities. Everybody can look at it into a different perspective. In a nutshell, the purpose of information security is that you want to make it available and make it secure from the people who are not authorized to use it. And you can also say that it is the assurance that the information is there whenever your authorized people want to have it, and it is not modified without any authorized access. So this is a general globally accepted information security's definition. So first thing here is that how and what are we going to implement the security on. And before that, we'll see a few terms. So first of all, let's talk about asset. So assets are all our belongings that we want to secure. So this can be a few of them can be some physical or tangible assets, and this also can be an intangible asset. So tangible asset is the one which we can touch. For example, your office, your servers, your computer, your devices, all the hardware. So they fall into the tangible assets category. And you can also have intangible assets like your information, your data, your programs, your processes. So all of them are intangible assets. So the purpose is to protect all of them. So once you define the asset can be anything which is of value to you or your organization. So the purpose of all the information security programs are to protect your assets. So once you have the asset protection in place, then you will be able to practice information security in a good practice, in a good practical way. So the next concept is vulnerability. So generally the vulnerability, risk, threat, so they are talked about by many people in the same way. So they can interchange the words when they want to refer to vulnerability, threat, or risk. They might be using some other term. So specifically, vulnerability is the lack of any system. It's the weakness in any system which is there. It's not necessary that the same weakness or this lack of functionality or this lack of its protection has been known to everyone. So there are majority of the times we have systems which have vulnerability all the time, but because nobody knows about them, nobody is going to exploit them. So vulnerabilities are the weaknesses or the loopholes in your system which are there, which might be detected sooner or later, but whenever they are detected, they become more dangerous. So until and unless your vulnerability is not exposed, it's not known to anyone, it's not going to be a threat for you. Okay. So then comes the threat or threat agent. So threat is something which is the likelihood of your vulnerability being exposed to. So the threat are the agents, threat are the entities who are going to exploit their vulnerability in your assets. The threats exploit your vulnerability to get unauthorized access to your systems or your particular things. So within that threat, the entity which is going to become a threat for you, that will become a threat agent. Okay, and then we talk about the risk. A risk is the likelihood of the threat exploiting the vulnerability. So you might have a vulnerability, but because nobody has access to that, nobody knows about that, so that doesn't become a risk. So the vulnerability can become a risk when it is more likely to be exploited by the threat. So exposure is the amount, exposure is the chances through which the risk will, your threat will exploit your vulnerability. And at the end of that, you will have a control. So control is the countermeasure, specifically any step that you take either in applying some policies or applying some security measures. So all of them, they will be called control. All the countermeasures that you put in place to mitigate or reduce the potential risk. So these are a few definitions. So we'll use them throughout our course, and they will also define how the different things are used. So when we talk about information security in general, we say that we say these three words altogether: CIA, the CIA triad. So CIA comprises of three different words. So they are the cornerstones of any information security program. So there are many security objectives of any security program, but these are the main three principles that you have to take care of when you are implementing. So we are talking about these three words: confidentiality, availability, and integrity. So they also be called as CIA triad: C for confidentiality, I for integrity, and A for availability. So we'll see them together. So first, confidentiality. Confidentiality means that you want to have access to your resources in an authorized way. So not an unauthorized person should not be able to access any resource. The example could be, you can have a file which is secret and you don't want anybody to see this file, have an access to this file except a few people. So this is a confidential document which only those people should have access to, and the others should not have access to that. So this is also this is pertaining to your assets. So your assets must be available, only accessible by the people who really have access to, should have access to that. So it ensures the essential level of secrecy for your documents or your assets. So the second part is integrity. So integrity is related with the changes to your environment or to your system. So it is to ensure that the changes made to your system, they are all secure and controlled. So nobody who does not have access or proper privileges should be able to make changes to your system. So it requires that your system is integral from inside and the outside. The changes are not made to the system without proper permissions and authority. So it is related to the accuracy of your data, accuracy of your systems, and the reliability of the system. So it ensures that what the information which you are sharing with your people, with your required people, so it is the same thing which it is intended for. So it is not modified while it is at rest, while it is on the network, but while it is moving from one place to another, as well as when you are exchanging it through different mediums. So integrity is about the changes which should be secure. And then we come to the third part of the CIA, which is the availability. So it ensures that the data or information system or any of that asset is available when it is required to the authorized people. So availability ensures that whenever any of the authorized people require to have an access to this, it is really available. So these are the three different things on which we have to put our controls to ensure one of them. Either we'll be ensuring the confidentiality or integrity or availability. So these are a few controls. These are the examples. They are not in complete thing. So they are the examples of different security controls that you can put for each of them. For example, for confidentiality, you can have the encryption of your data so that if somebody gets access to the data, if it's encrypted, they will not be able to get to the actual data. So the other options for confidentiality are the access control. The other tenet is the integrity. So integrity can be achieved by putting some hashing or cyclic redundancy checks along with the transmissions. Your configuration management program can assure the integrity of your system. Your access control, software digital signing, and change control. So they are all means to implement integrity for your environment. So the last part is availability. So you can have your RAID sets for the hardware of your disks. So this will ensure the data is available in case any hardware disk is failed. Your clustering for the whole system's availability in case one system fails. One of the systems fails, the other one takes over. You can have load balancing or redundant data or software data backups, disk shadowing, and collocations. Sure, sir. We have a request that we should talk in Urdu also. So, जैसे हम बात कर रहे थे कि कॉन्फिडेंशियलिटी, इंटेग्रिटी और अवेलेबिलिटी, ये तीन डिफरेंट सिस्टम्स हैं, ये तीन डिफरेंट कंट्रोल्स हैं जिनके ज़रिए से हम अपने सिस्टम्स को सिक्योर कर सकते हैं. असल में मैंने कभी उर्दू में इसको पढ़ाया नहीं है, थोड़ा सा प्रॉब्लम होगा, तो I'll try my level best to bring Urdu as much as possible. So let's continue. So these are the few controls. These are a few examples of them. We can have any other controls also. The purpose is to bring security into your environment. So once you secure your assets, your data, your information assets, so you will be actually achieving one of these three controls. Okay. So this was our fundamental concept, and the CIA tried. So now we'll go to the security governance principles. Before we go into that, let me just put one thing into the perspective, that the security has to be achieved in a brainful way. Sure, I will raise the voice now. I think the voice is better now. Okay. Okay. So the main purpose for any program is that whenever you are implementing any means to secure your assets, you have to use a balanced approach in that. So you can have number of controls available for any of the requirements, but you always have to ensure that you use your good sense for using all of those controls. Not all the time you require everything to be ultra secure. You don't have to implement security in a huge way whenever you have any solution requirements. So you have to find a balance between the usability and your budget, and not all the hyper controls are required for all the systems. तो जब हम इंफॉर्मेशन सिक्योरिटी के लिए मुख्तलिफ कंट्रोल्स अप्लाई करते हैं तो हमें इस चीज़ का यकीन दिलाना होता है कि हम अपने सिस्टम्स को सिक्योर कर रहे होते हैं। तो हर चीज़ के लिए हम एक लेवल डिफाइन करना पड़ता है और उस लेवल को अचीव करने के लिए हम मुख्तलिफ कंट्रोल्स अप्लाई करते हैं। तो हर जगह पे ये ज़रूरी नहीं होता कि हम ऐसे कंट्रोल्स अप्लाई करें जो कि सुपर डुपर हों, जो कि मार्केट में सबसे ज़्यादा अच्छे हों, सबसे ज़्यादा महंगे हों। हमें अपने रिक्वायरमेंट्स को देखना होता है और उसके लिहाज से हमें अपने बजट को भी देखना होता है और उसके बाद हम अपने कंट्रोल्स को अप्लाई करते हैं। सो नॉट ऑल द कंट्रोल्स आर इक्वल इन देयर फंक्शनैलिटी एज वेल एज एप्लीकेबिलिटी एंड द बजट, so you have to create a balance to use them. So let's talk about the security governance principles now. So we used another term now, security governance. Generally many people, they might have an interchangeable definition of information security governance and information security in general. So information security governance is necessarily something which is on top of information security. So it's idea of the information security governance, information governance in general and information security governance in particular. The purpose for this is to provide the strategic direction. So this can be on a bit higher level. So this could be on the C-level kind of thing, so which requires that the roadmap for information security is there. तो आप ये कह सकते हैं कि इंफॉर्मेशन सिक्योरिटी गवर्नेंस कंपनी के टॉप से आती है और इसका मकसद ये होता है कि आप जब इंफॉर्मेशन सिक्योरिटी इंप्लीमेंट करें तो आपको अचीव क्या करना है और क्या आप उसको प्रॉपरली अचीव कर रहे हैं या नहीं कर रहे हैं, और ये आपको सिर्फ डायरेक्शन देता है और इसकी इम्प्लीमेंटेशन फिर आप अपने इंफॉर्मेशन सिक्योरिटी प्रोग्राम्स के जरिए से करते हैं. So basically what happens is you take your organization's mission, goals and objectives into the consideration, and based on that you define different levels of security for your program, for your assets and for all the things that you have in your environment, and appropriately then you apply those controls which are there. So this direction also defines how much of a security is required on all of those different components of your environment. So it also gives you the direction how or what controls are required and how much budget will be there. So this can also become a requirement at some point in time, that this governance will arrange the budget also for you. So this will define how much budget can your organization allocate for your information security program. So information security governance थोड़ा सा आप समझ लें कि मैनेजमेंट की तरफ से आता है, टॉप लेवल की तरफ से आता है, और इंफॉर्मेशन सिक्योरिटी इम्प्लीमेंटेशन टेक्निकल पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू की तरफ से आता है. तो यू कैन ऑल्सो से दैट दिस इज द लैंग्वेज दैट इज यूज्ड बाय द मैनेजमेंट, और जो इंफॉर्मेशन सिक्योरिटी है वो टेक्निकल लैंग्वेज है जो कि आप लोग अपने इम्प्लीमेंटेशन के अंदर यूज करते हैं. So I just received a message, guys, that Gispp from Zoom. So they have removed the 40-minute time limit for us. So inshallah, we will not have a disconnection and we'll continue. Thank you, Zoom, for that. So now we'll talk about a few frameworks. So anytime when we talk about the framework what's a framework? Any framework can be different components when you combine them together, so that become useful for you, and then will give you the overall solution that you are looking for. So this could be a combination of many different things. Then when you combine them together, you get the framework. When you talk about the security frameworks, it's a series of documented, agreed, and understood policies, procedures, and processes that define how information is managed in a business to lower the risk and vulnerability and increase. Just a minute, I think I have another message. Yeah, so to increase the confidence in the over-connected world. So any security framework there are a number of security frameworks available in the world right now, and they can all be used to ensure that that your information security program is on the track, and they can be implemented. In the coming slides, we'll discuss a few of the security frameworks. Sure. Yeah, that's a good point from Faisal, that we should use English because this is going to be the language for your exam also. Yeah, that's right. I hope when you have heard the information about the exam, you should know that this exam is available only in English. So you won't be able to use any other language if you want to use the CAT exam. Yeah, so that's better, which is why actually I always prefer to use English for this kind of training. So we can use Urdu at some point in time to see how the people are looking at it. Yeah. Great. So in the coming slides, we'll talk about a few different security frameworks and how they are related to information security implementations. So first of all, let's talk about ISO 27001 and 27002. It is one of the well-known frameworks which is right now implemented in the world. So it was actually derived from BS 7799 series of security framework. So this is related to information security in general. So it has two parts, part 1 and part 2. So part 1, it outlines the control objectives and a range of controls that can be used to meet those objectives. And BS 7799 part 2, which outlines how a security program or information security management system, ISMS, can be set up and maintained. So BS 7799 part 2 also served as a baseline that organization could to get certified against. So generally ISO 27002, which is the practical implementation of BS 7799 part 2. Before actually BS 7799 was used majorly by the British companies, but later on it was taken up by ISO to be used at international level. So which is why now you see that ISO 27000 series is used by everyone in the world. So the key here is the ISMS. So it's the guideline development of the ISMS, and in this whole, risk management is the key for key component of the ISMS. So another architectural framework is the Zachman architecture framework. So essentially, as we see now, so this is the technical architecture for this. Let me see. There's a question. So the differentiation between 27001, 27002, and other versions of 27000. Yeah, of course. So as we talked about earlier, so 27001 necessarily is about the control objectives. So and 27002 is about the ISMS. So in a general way, the ISO 27000 series has a number of different programs. So 27000 is for overview, 27001 is ISMS requirements, 27002 is the code of practice for information security controls. So generally this is the one which is implemented in the world. And then there are many other different implementations, because as we talked about earlier, the asset cannot only be your information. You can have many other different kinds of assets, different kinds of systems in the environment that you want to secure. For each of them, so there is a different ISO 27000 series documents. Okay, so we can see that 27001 is general requirements, which shows what is an IMS and what must be done with that. And ISO 27002 is the code of practice, so which can be used how an IMS provide the information security. So ISO 27002 is mainly concerned with the implementation of the controls. So then you can have many different 27799, 27015. So they are all the different ones that can be implemented depending on the other areas of assets. Okay, so now let's talk about the other framework, which is the Zachman architecture framework. So this is an example of enterprise architecture framework, whereas the ISO 27000 was the example of the security framework. Okay, so this is a bit different, so you should ensure that you understand the difference between the security framework and the architecture framework. So the security framework necessarily talks about the security and its controls and implementations, whereas the architecture framework does not talk about security only, it has everything. So let's talk about the Zachman framework. The Zachman framework is necessarily, it's a different 6 questions and are asked with that, and with that the answers are provided. It's in a table way. As you can see, we have 6 different questions: what, how, where, who, when, and why, and the answers with the different perspectives. So at the high level, it could be executive level is the contextual, and then conceptual, architectural, technological, implementation, and enterprise. So as it says that it's one of the first enterprise architecture frameworks that was created by John Zachman. So this model is very generic, and it is well suited to frame the work we do in the information system security. So in this, generally what we see, each row represents a layer in your organization, and each column puts a question for that. For each row, we can see that from end to end, that particular row defines the complete function of that person, or that particular row, or that particular position for that organization. I have another question in there. So the question is, when you are saying architecture is everything other than security, can you elaborate brief in way like? And Muzammal is saying he can't hear any voice. Guys, can you hear me? Please confirm if everybody can hear me. Great. So people can hear me. So Muzammal, please check your own system. Yeah. Coming back to the question. So the difference between, or when you are saying the architecture is everything other than security, well, it's not. Architecture is concerned about the functionality and implementation. So it defines the overall outline of your environment. So it has everything in a complete picture for you. So like in this particular example that we are seeing, the architecture framework from Zachman. So we have many different people and how those people are getting access to your environment. Yeah, that could be the reason he might have a VPN issue. So so in this so this architecture is used to optimize often fragmented processes, so into the integrated environment that is responsive to change and supportive to the business strategy. Okay, so this was these two architects that we have, the frameworks that we have seen, they are to be used in the general commercial environment. So many companies, whether they are in the private public sector, any of them can use them. Now we'll talk about a few other frameworks. So one of them is the open group architecture framework. So this is also another architecture framework, generally known as TOGAF or TOGAF standard. Okay, it's a framework that can be used to develop the following types. So it works for these 4 different types. So business architecture, data architecture, application architecture, and technology architecture. So the origin for this TOGAF is the US Department of Defense. So it's a framework that can be used to develop any of these 4 different types. So it can be used to create the individual architecture types through the use of ADM, which is the architecture development model. So there are many different types of implementations available for TOGAF, and there is a complete course also available. You can take that course. There are multiple levels of course available to use TOGAF in the environment. So it's one of the very much implemented frameworks in the world. So as a CISSP, we are not required to go into the details of that. What we are required is we need to understand the frameworks and how we are going to relate them for the information security. So for this particular framework, which is TOGAF, so we can only say that it has these 4 different architectures which are combined within this, and you can use all of them to secure your environment. Then we see a few different military-oriented architecture frameworks. So there are 2 of them here. There is Department of Defense Architecture Framework, DODAF or DODAF, and there is Ministry of Defense Architecture Framework or MODAF. See, the DODAF was developed by US Department of Defense, and it was the first thing which was done by them, and they implemented within the military of the US, and the MODAF was it was managed by the British Ministry of Defense. So they developed the MODAF, which is the recognized enterprise architecture framework. So it is based on DODAF, and the purpose for this is to get the data in the right format to the right people as soon as possible. And as we're seeing that in the modern days, the warfare is going in from the traditional things to the 5th generation warfare, in which information security is the pillar and the cornerstone of any security program. So these 2 are very much implemented for all the security programs of the US as well as the British governments. So they use these programs to ensure the security and integrity of all the systems which they implement. So as we see that the terrorist groups and many other different organizations throughout the world, so they target the countries, and based on those targets they carry out some attacks. So now these attacks can be now in the form of information security breaches. So these 2 frameworks, they are specific for these governments to ensure that their government can work without any of the hindrances to their environments. So the next framework is the COBIT. So COBIT is for the information security architecture, and COBIT is implemented by or governed by ISACA, so we can always get access to that, which also gives the CISA and CISM certifications. So the same organization controls COBIT. So it's been around for a long time, and it is not specific for information security only. It is for overall IT, and so you can implement it not only for the information security but also for IT management and governance. So basically it talks about the information governance in general for any organization. So the key principles are which are here. So meeting the stakeholders' needs, covering the enterprise end-to-end, which is why it is not specific to information security only. Generally, people talk about COBIT in the context of information security, but the beauty of this particular framework is that it can be implemented not only for information security, but also for everything else in the environment. So it applies the single integrated framework for the whole environment to be managed, and it enables the holistic approach, and it separates governance from the management. So this is another very good purpose for this. So everything in this COBIT is ultimately linked to the stakeholders through a series of transforms called the cascading goals. So these goals are defined and then they are implemented. So there are around 17 enterprise and 17 IT related goals in the COBIT. So these 34 goals, they define the outline of COBIT when you are implementing that. Okay, so let's talk about another framework, which is the NIST SP 800-53. So NIST is the National Information Systems. Sorry, what is it called? NIST is the National Institute of Standards and Technology. So it has different special publications. So they are available in the 800 series. So 800-53 is the series which is specific for the security and privacy controls for federation, information systems, and organizations. So NIST published this publication of SP 800-53. It is available, and it divides the control into different classes. So you can see they are technical, operational, management, and just a minute. So we can have these four different classes of controls: technical, operational, management, and so these are only three. 1, 2, 3. So generally we see that these are the three different terms we are using here: technical controls, operational controls, and management controls. So when they are implemented in the we also see some other different kinds of controls, which are administrative controls, technical controls, and physical controls, which are the terms which are used in the commercial organizations. So they use administrative, technical, and physical controls. When it comes to the military or the government, so they use these terms: management, technical, and operational controls. So these are the few differences. So whenever you see in the exam also the controls which are administrative, technical, and physical, we are talking about the commercial organizations for the implementation, like we have COBIT or other commercial things. And this 800 is open standard, so this is available openly. You can go to the NIST website and you can download from there. So there are a lot of documents available around that also. So now we see another framework which is ITIL. So now we are talking about the process management development and process management frameworks. So the first framework for the process management is ITIL. So it's one of the globally recognized and accepted framework. So its purpose is to implement the information technology infrastructure library. So this is to implement the infrastructure in general. So it is implemented for the change management, for release management, configuration management, and many other different management frameworks within its side. So this is the framework which is based on 34 different books. They were published by the British government between 1989 and 1992. And then these books were then later on, they were collected together and they were used as a framework for reference. So it's a reference architecture, so which can be implemented by many different systems within the environment. So you might have a system which is based on ITIL, so which will ensure that you are following the guidelines provided by this particular framework. So its main contribution is showing how controls can be implemented for IT services in the organization. It's a de facto standard for best practices in the IT service management for this ITSM, which is one of the key terms used by many of the companies. So whenever somebody talks about ITSM, he is talking about the ITIL. So it's a customizable framework that is provided either in the set of books or in an online format. So it provides the goals, the general activities necessary to achieve these goals, and the input and output values for each process is requires to meet these determined goals. So although ITIL is a component that deals with security, its focus is more towards the internal SLAs between the IT department and the customers. And those customers could be from within the same organization, or they could be the customers whom your organization is serving to. So once you define that SLA, so that all is governed and managed through the ITIL. Another framework is Six Sigma, also called Lean Six Sigma. So it's a process improvement methodology. So it's being used in the security assurance industry. So in some instances to measure the success factors of different controls and procedures. Six Sigma was developed by Motorola, and the goal was to identify and remove defects in its manufacturing process. So after Motorola has implemented it within its own environment, then it became a general thing. And now we can see it's implemented many ways, and many different people practice that. And now we see also the practitioners are labeled in a different karate-like belts. So you can say the Lean Six Sigma, green belt, and yellow belt, and black belt, etc. So the question we have is, what's the difference between ITIL and NIST? ITIL is, let me go back. ITIL is a general standard, which, let me go back to the previous slide, and NIST. As you say, NIST is by the US government. Okay, that's another good idea. Okay, I'll take the questions, guys, on the way also, as well as I'll keep some of them to the end also. Let me answer this question, and then for the questions which come from now onwards, I'll try to answer them at the end because we are running out of time. ITIL is more towards the information security management. ITSM, information, it's basically towards the service management and service delivery. And basically, as I mentioned earlier, you are managing the SLAs through your ITSM solution, which is the ITIL. And 800 series from the NIST is mainly it's concerned with the security implementations. So that was Six Sigma. Let's talk about another standard, which is the CMMI, or Capability Maturity Model. So this is the implementation. The requirement for this is for the software development and application development environments. So if you are developing an application or you are developing a software, so you will get the CMMI different levels of certifications. So the purpose for the CMMI is the software developments integrated environment, whether they are in a different levels. Like the first one is the initial, the second one is managed, the third maturity level is defined, and the fourth one is quantitatively managed, and the fifth one is optimizing. As this is more related to the information security, you will get more questions about CMMI compared to the other models in the exam. So it puts more emphasis on CMMI compared to ITIL and Six Sigma because it is more heavily used in the security industry. Because ITSM is generally for the service delivery, and similarly 800 is also for the service implementations, and CMMI is specifically for the implementation in the software security industry. So as you see here, there are different levels. Whenever your organization, when you are developing some software, so you will take care of the different levels of your software development. When you want to get certified, you implement it, and then once you achieve the desired security maturity in your environment, then you go for the certifications. So let's talk about the compliance requirements now. So uh, com the compliance is basically when you are required to implement something as a regulation. So you might have the compliance requirements from your government or from the regulator who is governing your particular organization. So there could be legislative compliance requirements and regulatory compliance requirements. The legislative compliance requirements are from the law. So by law, the organization you are working with, if they say that you have to implement certain security policies and certain security goals, then you go ahead with that. And the regulatory ones through your regulator. For example, in Pakistan's point of view, let's say you are a bank, so you will be regulated by Pakistan State Bank. So the state bank will put some regulations, and they will require you to comply with them in terms of any of the implementations of your operations. So this could be specific to the IT or not. So when it comes to this specific to IT implementations or IT security, so that will become your regulatory compliance. So if your law or the law from the country you are under, so that will become your legislative compliance requirements. So as a companies work in a very regulated, very strict environments. So whenever you are implementing any security program, so you have to ensure that you are complying with the requirements put in place from the regulator or the government that you are working with. Then there are some privacy requirements. So the privacy laws are now on the high these days. Privacy is a very big concern for many of the organizations, when the organizations specifically who are dealing with the personal information of the people. And these requirements are put in place to ensure that the people do not use the information provided to them by the personnel, by the different people, or by the different users for any other purpose for which it is intended for. So these laws are now on the high. Now recently we have been talking about the GDPR, which has been implemented in the European area. So they adopted this to ensure that the people's information is secure. So this also is a requirement for any information security program to ensure that the privacy requirements are met according to the governments who are implementing that, who are asking the organizations to follow that. So we can see that there are different requirements in terms when the information is obtained from the user, how much security do you have to put when you are storing this information into your databases, how much security will you implement when you are exchanging this information within your organization or the other organizations, and whether the consent has been obtained from the person or not. And also, if this information leaks out, what's the penalty that has to be put on that organization? Now let's talk about a bit more about the legal and the regulatory issues that pertain to information security in the global context. So first of all, we see there are two different kinds of computer crimes, which are also called cyber crimes. So we can have some computer assisted crimes, and we can have some computer targeted crimes. So the computer assisted crimes are the ones which are in which the attacker uses the computer based systems to attack someone. The purpose could be either the stealing of information or the sabotage, where you want to just get the other parties environment, make it unavailable. Or this could be a theft. It could be the usage of information in an unlawful way, or this could be some spying activity. All of those things can be called as computer assisted crimes. And the computer targeted crimes are, first of all, we can see it's a DDoS or distributed denial of service attacks. So the purpose for that is to bring the other party's environment down, make the service unavailable. Or you might be targeting the capturing of the passwords of the other sensitive data from others, and so on. So these are different kinds of cyber crimes which are happening, and how the companies are going to implement different solutions for that. So first of all, let's talk about the OECD. its guidelines for the protection of privacy and trans-border flow of personal data. OECD is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. So this is it controls the guidelines for the international flow of information. So these are a few core principles which were defined by the OECD. So first of all, the collection of limitation principle. So the collection of the personal data should be limited, obtained by lawful and fair means, and with the knowledge of the subject. And then the data quality principles, which says that the personal data should be kept complete and current, and relevant to for the purpose for which it is being used. And then there is a purpose specification principle, which means that the subjects should be notified of the reason for the collection of their personal information at the time that it is collected, and the organization should only use it for the same purpose. Then the other one is the use limitation principle, so which means that only with the consent of the subject or by the authority of the law should the personal data be disclosed, made available, and used for the purpose other than those previously stated. Then there is the security safeguard principle, which means that there should be reasonable safeguards which should be in place to protect the personal data against the risks such as the loss, its unauthorized access, modification, and the disclosure. And then there is the openness principle, which means that the development practice and the policies regarding the personal data should be openly communicated. So in addition, the subject should also be able to easily establish the existence and nature of the personal data, its use and its identity and usual residence of the organization in possession of that data. And finally, there is the individual participation principle, which states that the subject should be able to find out whether the organization has their personal information and what that information is, and if they see there is any need to change that, they should be able to modify and update that and challenge the denied request to do that. So if some organizations they challenge, they deny the access to that personal information, or they do not allow them to change that, so they can challenge it in the court of law. And the last one is the accountability principle, which means that the organization should be accountable for complying with the overall law, and they must support all the previous principles. So this was the first law. And then we also talk about the GDPR, which is a recent implementation. So this GDPR was adopted by the European Union in 2016, I guess, yeah. And it became enforceable in the May of 2018, I think. So last year in around May, this was implemented. So it was basically for the, it defined different subjects and its processors and controllers, and based on that it includes different provisions. So these are the few different provisions for the GDPR: consent, right to be informed, the right to district processing, the right to be forgotten, and the data breaches. So the consent is that the person should first of all give his complete consent for any collection of personal information for any system, and he should be informed whenever the data is being gathered for anyone. And there should be very district processing, which means the data subjects can agree to have the data stored by a controller, but disallowed to be processed. So you can say that you can store it, but you will not process it for any purpose or for any reasons. And the right to be forgotten means the person can anytime ask for deleting that data from anybody's repository for complete removal. And finally, there is a data breaches clause for that, which controls which makes the data controllers, they must report a data breach within 72 hours. So if there is a data breach by any private information stored by any of the organization, they must report it within 72 hours, or else they will be legally persecuted for under this GDPR rule. We'll talk about a few different code of different law systems in the world. Guys, I think we have finished our 1 hour. I'll try to complete as much as possible within a few minutes more. Now we'll talk about different law systems. First is the civil law system or the court law system. As it's shown, it's used in the Europe except in the UK. And the civil law system is different than the civil suits that we generally do, but this is based on the rules, and generally it means that everything should be documented. Everything should be based on the rules. So once you define the rule, you just go by the book. So any cases which are processed under the civil law system, so they are all taken care of under the guidelines which are already defined and they are published. So there should be a defined law for that. So they do not allow any precedents to be taken, which means that if one of the court takes a decision, the other court is not liable to use the same as a reference and make the decision in the same light. So every court, they are independent in interpreting the law, and they are not liable for doing any precedents for the other courts. So even the lower courts, so they are not compelled to follow the decisions made by the higher court. So the other law system is the common law system, which is developed in England, and it is applicable in the US and the UK. So it is based on the precedents. So sometimes this is not documented also. So the common law system is not documented. You will not see a book showing all the rules and regulations of the common laws. So it is based on the precedences, which means that if there are any previous incidents where this particular thing or this particular incident has happened, so they will use that as a reference and make decisions on that. So it gives you the concept of judges and juries of peers, so which is used to make the decisions on any system. So it is then further broken down into the civil, into the criminal law, or civil or tort law, or the administrative laws. So in Pakistan also we use something similar. So we have this criminal law, which is pertaining to the criminal activities like murders or stealing, etc. Then there are civil laws which is pertaining to the people's interactions with each other. For example, marriages, for the properties distribution, etc. And the administrative law is for the implementation of the law and order in the whole country. So there are some other law systems also. So like customary law, which is based on the customs of an area. So like in Pakistan, we have some jirga system, or we can have like in a small village, so they might have their small jirga, which is handled by the same people. So that is the customary laws example. So which is the implementation of that is very specific to a small area. So it also varies from one to another. Another law system is the religious law system. It's based on some religions, like for Muslims we have Sharia law, and for Christians and for Jews they have their own laws which are defined by the religion. Like Hindus, they follow the Hindu law system. So these religious law systems are used to rectify any problems between the people based on the religions they follow. So then you can have a mixed law system, which may be used in any environment, in any country, or in any particular area. So in the mixed law system, you mix any of the above. For example, you use the common law plus the religious law system to have a constitution of a country, like we have in Pakistan, which is based on different common law system as well as the religious law system, when we implemented a few changes of the Sharia law within our law system. So within that, what we are talking about is the intellectual property. So intellectual property is anything which is the production or an idea of a person, and he wants to protect it. So if somebody conceives an idea, and based on that idea they make some invention, they write some books, some poetry, or they write a piece of code. So anything which is specific to one person's creation, so that will be his intellectual property. So these are a few examples of the intellectual property, like trademarks or service marks, so which represent them, patents, copyrights, and trade secrets. So let's talk about them in a bit detail now. So as a CSSP, when in the exam also, you might be asked to differentiate between a few of them. So you might be given some pictures just like this Coca-Cola. So they will ask you what is it? This is an example of what. So first of all, we have a trade secret. So trade secret is something which is known to one company only. This could be a process, this could be a formula, this could be some internal internal definition of things, which a company uses for its own benefit. And if the competitor knows that, with that they can either harm your profit, or they can reduce your market share, or with that they can increase their own productivity. So basically the trade secret gives an edge to an organization to operate in a competitive environment. So this could be your competitive edge over your competitors. As it is pertinent, it's nothing which is documented. You cannot say that this is my trade secret, because the moment you document it, it is known to the others. So it's the secrecy of this particular trade secret that can be your strength. As you can see also, like there could be two burger shops. So one of the burger shops make the burgers one way, the other makes in the other way. So their formula and their process of doing all of those things, that is their trade secret. So one person can use one formula, the other can use the same thing with a bit different variation of that. With that, they can have competition. So people, when they like one, it could be based on the process or the formula that they are using. By law, there is no duration of protection for the trade secrets. So this is the responsibility of the organization whose trade secret is that, to make the protection of that particular trade secret. And as long as they can keep it secure, it's up to them. So this is an example. So this is, for example, Coke is making their drink in a specific way, and their formula is world's best known trade secret, which they are protecting even up to now. And there are many other different cola companies. They have tried to get to that, but so far they are able to keep it safe within themselves. Another example is the copyright. So copyright is it's the intangible property right. So it's granted by law to the author or originator of a literacy or artistic production of specific type. So you can have a book written by you, you can have a piece of code written by you, you can have some poetry written by you. So this is the copyright. So copyright makes the person who has this particular thing with them, so they will give the rights to others to make a copy of that. They will have the original of that. So anybody who wants to make a tangible or intangible copy of that, they must seek first of all either the permission of the owner, or they should pay them for that. And if at any time the production is not made under the explicit permissions of the owner, so the owner can always go to the court and get the compensation for that. So the duration of protection is the life of the conceiver plus 70 years. So if somebody wrote a book or something, so the duration of protection will be the life of that person. The moment he dies, then 70 years more, and after that, that becomes public property. Anybody can reproduce that and get benefits for that. If any of these things is the result of the combined efforts of more than one persons, so the duration of protection will be at the death of the last person of them plus 70 years from that onwards. So if there are 10 persons, for example, who conceived an idea or who wrote a book or who contributed to a publication, so when the last person dies, so the duration of protection will be 70 years after the last person's death. Then we have trademarks and registered trademarks. So this R, it means it's a registered trademark, or we can also see the TM. So a trademark is a distinctive mark, motto, device, or any of these things. So that a manufacturer stamps, prints, or otherwise affixes on the goods. So this could be a logo, this could be a statement, a small keyword, or something which distinguishes it from the others. The example could be that, for example, the Nike has a small tick kind of a logo which it uses. So anybody, when you go to the market and buy some shoes or some shirts, whenever you see that small tick, you don't have to they don't have to put the same word of Nike over there, but the moment you see that tick, it means it is production of Nike. And that, so anybody who wants to use something similar to that, so that will be a breach of the trademark law. So the person who or the entity who registers that for the first time, so they have to keep using that. If the company stops using that particular trademark or that registered trademark, so that will be taken back from them. The example of that, the most famous example of that, is the Android. So there was a guy, he created a company. He named it Android, and he kept it with him for a long time, but unfortunately he couldn't survive and the company closed. So the moment the company closed, immediately after that, Google put forward their operating system and they named it Android. The moment they put it as a name, that same person, he put his all his work on in a website and tried to retrieve back his logo or his trademark. And by some instance in 2002, when Google started working on the Android system, so there was a legal battle between them. He put $94 million claim on Google to pay him in case they are willing to use the same name. But as his company was out of the business and he was not continuously using that, his claim was not accepted and Google won that case. So generally, the protection for any trademark is once you register that, you can use it for 10 years, and you have to keep using it to retain your trademark. If you stop using it, it will be taken back from you. So at the time of 10 years, when you ask for a renewal, you have to show the proof that you are still using it and it is in use by you, and you are using it in a larger scale. It's not that you are just blocking it from others to use that. The other form is the patent. So it's the strongest form of intellectual property protection. So the patent is generally for the protection of the inventions. So whenever you make something which is made for the first time, so you are the owner of that, and you do this patent. You go to the law office and you patent your particular invention. So the duration for protection is for 20 years from the date of approval. So once you file that, so after that it will be given, the patents will be given to you, and then you will have the rights to do that. So another term that we use is the software piracy. So it means we are making an illegal copy of the software that is the work of an organization. So we have different kinds of software licenses categories. We have a freeware. It means that anybody can make a copy of that software and they can use it for any purposes, unless it is stated by the owner. Somebody can say that it's a freeware as long as it is personal use, but if you want to use it on a commercial, you have to pay them. Then there is a shareware or tryware. So it is essentially either it will give you a restricted environment where they will give restriction in terms of functionality or time. So after that time or within that functionality, it will not be used afterwards. Then there is commercial software, which is essentially the same software which is sold by the developers, and the consumers, they pay money to the developer and then they use it for time. So the licensing of the commercial is also very different. So you can have either perpetual licenses, which could be forever with you, or you can have time-bound licenses which you have to renew after a certain period of time. So then there are academic licenses also, so which means that this has to be used only for the academic purposes, and generally the prices for the academic licenses are way less than the commercial licenses. So you can also have the same version of the software might be available for commercial as well as academic use, but if you are using it for the learning or for the development of the skills of your students, so then you will be paying very small fraction of the actual commercial prices. So there are now software piracy laws available throughout the world, and many different global organizations, so they are putting a lot of legal framework to ensure the privacy of their software, and the governments are now cooperating with them on a very large scale. So also the WTO is also implementing this requirement for any of the countries in the world to become part of the World Trade Organization. So they have to implement the security of the software by implementing the software piracy laws in their environments. So another part of the intellectual property is the privacy. So it means that if you are implementing any solutions and it requires you to process the private information of the persons, you have to ensure that the information of the persons are kept in a secure and manageable way. So this could be linked with the identity theft, and the this could be some information which is kept by the people, which is not directly sought from them, like your shopping or browsing patterns. Generally, you use cookies to collect some personal information of the person's behavior, and based on that, you give them ads. So generally, they will say that we're collecting the information for ads, but later on, the same information can be shared by someone else to put their products forward or send them to you as advertisements, as well as some other enticements to collect to bring you to the other websites. So there is no single international law for that. So you have to first of all see the operating environment in the country in which you are working, how they are protecting the privacy of that, and they have to put all those privacy laws intact. So these are a few other laws. As a CISSP, you are not going to be asked from any of them, because previously there were some questions from these laws, but at that time CISSP was more focused on the USA, but now we see that the CISSP is now globally accepted, and too many companies are supporting it, and too many individuals are coming into that. So because of that, the CISSP is not focusing on this US specific laws. So you just you can go ahead and Google all of them, and you can see them in the on the internet also. So these all details are available. So there were different federal laws which were released by the USA to protect the information security, and most of them are already still, some of them are in place, like HIPAA is in place for the health insurance protection, and similarly PCI DSS, this is another one, which is the payment card industry data security standard. So this is you can have some questions based on the PCI DSS also, but others you might not be having in any of those questions. I think I'll not be able to cover 1.6. I'll just cover 1.5 because there's only a couple of slides for that. So first of all, as you would have seen during the requirements for a CISSP, so the process is that you will take the examination. So once you pass the examination, then you will have to go through the endorsement phase, and you should also have to prove your 5 years of experience before you can get the certification. And the third part for that is, once you get the examination and endorsement, you have to accept the code of ethics of the ISC². So this is the code of ethics, which they put a lot of emphasis on. The purpose for that is that the information security practitioner, so they practice a very high moral ground. They stand on a very high moral ground, and they have to protect the society, the commonwealth, and the infrastructure. So they act honorably, honestly, justly, responsibly, and legally, and they provide diligent and competent service to the principals, and they advance and protect the profession. So these are all documented ones. So you have to notarize your acceptance of these before you can get any of the certifications from CISSP. Guys, now I have one part left, which is the develop, document, and implement security policy standards, procedures, and guidelines. I have only a few slides for that. If everybody agree, I can continue. I don't have an issue. Okay. Faisal says next time, and so please. Okay, I'll take maybe, if everybody agrees, maybe 5 minutes more, then we can continue. Good. I'll continue, guys. So this is the sixth part of this, where we will talk about some documentation of our securities. Documentation is very important part of any information security program, and in the documentation we come across many different kinds of documents. So we see there is this policies, procedures, guidelines, baselines, work instructions, so all of them are there. So how do we differentiate from one to another? And as a practitioner, you will be using them a lot, and from exams point of view, you will be asked to differentiate them from one to another. So first of all, let's talk about the policies. The policy is a very high level document which just gives you the the direction, and which gives you the outline for the implementation of anything. So talking about security policy, so it's a very general statement. It is produced by the senior management, and it takes what role security plays within the organization. So this is a very high level document. It can be either issue specific or system specific. And so these are the you can say the security policy is the first thing which is defined for any information security program. So the information security policy is the one which drives the whole security program, and based on this you get further information about all your program. And as it states that it comes from the top management. So, and it states the things in a very generic way. Generally you don't see the names of any technologies within this, and it just gives you just like a mission statement and the vision statement of the organization in general. So this will be this vision and mission of the information security program for the organization. And as it comes from the top management, they have to be on board with that. They have to develop it, they have to own it, and because they are the ultimate responsible for any security program. So once the management buys your information security program, so they will develop this information security policy, and based on that you will further develop many technical different smaller policies. So once the general security policy is defined, then you define many specific security policies. So these are a few organization policies, like acceptable use policy. It is to define the acceptable use of your environment, your equipment, your software and hardware, etc., all the facilities provided to the people. So then there is risk management policy, which defines how the risks are defined, managed, controlled, and mitigated in the whole environment. Then vulnerability management policy, which is also called sometimes the patch management policy, which is how the vulnerabilities and different issues within your software and hardware are directed. Then there is data protection policy in general, how the data is protected. Then there is access control policy, business continuity policy. We'll talk about that in our fourth domain. Then there is log aggregation and auditing policy, personnel security policy, which is generally with the physical controls. Then comes the physical security policy, which is for the physical environments like your facilities, your data centers, servers and hardware. And then there's secure application development policy, which concerns with the secure development of your applications, as we saw in CMMI standards, how you are going to develop the security within your applications. And then change management and change control policy, and email policy for the use and use of email in the environment, and incident response policy. So these are a few organization policies. There can be many more from them. So as a CISSP, you are not required to you will not be asked to develop a policy at any point in time. So it's a different practice that you should make. It's a complete line of business in itself. So there are many organizations who work specifically for the development of policies for the organization. As a CISSP, you must understand that these policies, they work together to form the overall information security policy of the organization. So then we talk about another document called standard. The standards are mandatory activities, rules and actions and regulations that are put in place by the organization. So they complement the policy. So you can say that when you define a policy, let's suppose you say email policy, you will say that we require the email to be so and so, and it will give the company a means of communication between and the outside organizations. Now with the standard, you will say when I implement an email system, I will use like Lotus Notes, or you will say I will use Microsoft Exchange or Google email services. So you will define that particular standard. To implement this policy, I will have to define this standard. So this standard is the explanation of the security policy that you have used. So the standards could be internal, external, or mandated by the government. So they are the support functions for your information security policies. So this is in general the standards are. So you define the standards for each of the policies that you have, and they will be anytime any of the implementation of the policy will be done, the standards have to be met. There is no option of ignoring them. So whenever you will implement any of these information security policies, you will use the standards to implement them. So then there is baseline. So baseline is an acceptable good state of the system that you have. Then you define the baseline to ensure that any future implementations of the same system, they are taken care of with the same level as the baseline has been defined. So baseline could be the state of a system when it is defined. It could be, for example, a system with a specific operating system, a specific service pack level on that, a specific hardening level of the environment. So that will become your baseline. So once you implement certain patches, your baseline will be improved, and you will get that new system as a baseline. So baselines keep changing over a period of time, and you have to ensure that whenever you are implementing any system, the current baseline of that system is used. So for that you need many different kind of controls like change control or configuration management controls. So that will ensure that your baselines are configured and they are well taken care of throughout the life cycle. So a baseline results in a consistent reference point that will be used for all the future implementations of the same system. And then there is guidelines. So as its name suggests, so it's a recommended actions. So these are not, so it's a recommended action which the person can or cannot follow. It's up to his discretion. So it's, for example, you will be asked to use either this or this function for the same implementation. So it will be the choice of the implementer which one to use. And the last part is the procedures. So procedures are the step-by-step tasks that should be performed to complete one or achieve one specific goal. So they are considered the lowest level of the documentation chain, and they are generally the ones which are specific to the technology or the implementation of the systems that you have. So there will be, for example, if you have Cisco routers, you'll be having a procedure to how to configure a certain Cisco router. And if you have any other system which is implemented with you, so it will be specific to that particular system. So the procedures spell out how the policy, standards and the guidelines will actually be implemented in an operating environment. So procedures sometimes can also be called SOPs. So SOPs are standard operating procedures. So they define in detail within the procedure. You will define the which systems it is implemented for or related to, and what are the step-by-step different things that you will perform to use that procedure. So procedures are used by the people to perform their tasks in a smooth and defined pattern. So that concludes this half of the first domain. I'm open to the questions if anybody have. So let me unmute all. Okay. Yeah, example of the email or inf policy standards, guidelines, SOPs. Yeah, why not? I can give you the example for that. By the way, you can go to sans.org and they have a very beautiful repository of all these documentation. So you can download all of them there. They are all they are available in document and doc and the PDF formats. So download it in a document format and it will give you, you can search for the company name and replace it with your company, and then you can customize it according to your requirements. Let me, so there are a few questions more. The question is about the general length of this course. It's a 40 hours course. We have only 1 hour. Generally, the one which I covered now, it takes around 3 to 4 hours to cover. This one domain is around 6 hours of delivery, and I try to squeeze it as much as possible, which is why I have to skip a lot of information. Let me share with you the one of the pages. Okay, as you see here, so this is an example of policies from policy templates from SANS. So these are a few of the policies available. Acceptable use, acceptable encryption, use policy, clean desk policy, data breach, all of them are here. These are specific to network security. These are specific to server security, and these are application security. These are a few old ones which they are not using it anymore. They're not updating them anymore, but they can be used in case you want to have any previous. And this is the URL for that, sans.org. You can Google it simply, SANS security policies. You will get there very easily. So they're all available. Let's take this email policy as an example. So it's here. So if you see here, this is the email policy, and it's available as a PDF as well as a document. You can click on the document, as you can see it opens here. And let me now show you the policy when it is here now. So this is an example of a policy. In this you will see that it shows an overview and purpose of the policy, the scope of the policy. As you can also see that it shows this company name here, which can then be used, which you can just search for this and replace it with your company's name, and then you can customize it for your purpose. So this is an overview of the policy, which is the purpose. Then there is a scope of the policy, and this is the actual policy. So it gives you all the how the email is going to be used and what are the different things to be used for that. And you can also see that many policies, they interrelate with each other, and you can call other policy as a reference also. You can say that if I am, for example, within the email, if it says that there is an encryption to be made for any emails, you can refer to the encryption policy from this email policy. So then this is the compliance of the policy, then responsibilities, who are the ones who will who have implemented, and then what are the exceptions and what are the non-compliance. And then there are the related policies and standards which are available here. Then this is the revision history. So this is an example of a policy which is available. You can modify this. Question is, it is free? Yes, it is free. Books and questions for practice. I think this was all covered in the first session. Ahmed has already done that. So just refer to the previous session. You will get all the names of the books and questions. ISC Square has their own books and their own question material also available. So they give a lot of practice questions available. I think yesterday I was also saying that someone has shared a lot of CSSP material. So there were questions part of that also. So you can refer to that. There is also a question about suggesting the books. Well, the books were all informed in the previous session. One of the good book is from Sean Harris, CSSP All-in-One. It's one of the very good books as a reference point, especially for the people who are coming with the network background. It's a beautifully written book with very plain English, and anybody can read it and understand it very easily. If a person has 4 years of experience, can he be eligible? Yes, he can be eligible to take the exam, but he will be eligible to take the certification after he completes his 5 years of requirement. Farooq says to unmute. Which question bank is good for practice? Well, actually there is no specific question bank at any time, because ISC Square always keep changing the question bank from where the exams come. So you should not focus on the dumps. Even if you go to any famous dump sites, you will not get CSSP questions over there, because the questions are not valid after maybe 3 or 4 months. And you have to be up to date with the current implementation of security in the world. You cannot say that if you have read something 6 years ago and it is available to applicable today, it's not going to happen that. So the concepts are the key. Once you are with the good concepts, only then you'll be able to pass the exam. Tell if there is any other standard other than 27,001. I already mentioned, so there is SP standard 800-53. This is also available. ISO, basically, whenever you talk about ISO, it is the biggest acceptable and you can say the de facto standard in the world. So whenever you want to implement any of the compliance things, you go with the ISO. So it's better to always choose ISO for any. So ISO 9000, ISO 27000, 14000, so they're all different series. So 27001 is specific for the information security. Yeah, previous session is also available on the GSSPV's YouTube channel. Suggest the best snack one can keep during the session. Well, I cannot suggest a snack, guys. It's up to you. You can have some chewing gums, or you can have any of the other things. Telecom background. Well, actually, when you define the background and the experience of 5 years, you can say that the requirement is 5 years of security, but you can say that I'm working in the operations or infrastructure with a flavor of security, and they will accept that. They don't have too much of hard and fast rules on that. So that's all, guys. So I think we should conclude the session here. Yeah, there's a suggestion for 2 hours. I don't have an issue. I can make it for 2 hours if everybody agrees. Let me talk to the GSSPP's management, and next time we'll see who will do the endorsement. Well, the endorsement is done by the current CISSP. So if, for example, I am a current CISSP and you are the one who want to get endorsed, so I will endorse it for you. Disaster recovery should be part of that. We have a full domain for the disaster recovery. We will cover that. which business continuity and disaster recovery, we have a full domain for that. We have, before actually there was a complete domain for that, so now it has been changed. So we have a part of the operations security, so there is disaster recovery and business continuity part of that. How can one differentiate framework with the architecture? Okay, framework is generally it's the activities which define when you complete them together, so that become framework. It's procedures, policies, your requirements. When you put them all together, that become a framework. So that gives you a reference point, you know, on which you refer to, and then from there you implement. Architecture is the implementation of the framework in an environment. So that gives you the reference for the technical implementation of the solution. Will you be doing one session where you can guide about how to put your experience for CISSP requirement? I think this was already discussed in the previous session. 2 hours is long, so let's talk about this with the management. More control. Okay guys, then let's conclude the session here. Thank you very much. It has been an honor talking to all of you, and it's been an honor always serving the community. I am available for all the questions offline also. Any questions you can send me in the email. You can approach me through LinkedIn or any of the available channels, or through GSSP's chat groups, any of them, through WhatsApp. So I'm available anytime you have any questions. I will be able, it will be always an honor to answer to any of them. Inshallah, we'll have the second session also. Until time, it's goodbye from me. Thank you very much.